if you waste your time and like dwell on a mistake that you made or something, you lost something for your own team or whatever. And I know that we're all human. You make mistakes, and I figure if I'm going to just sob and dwell on that, I says, then I'm losing myself.
Hi, everyone. This is Rob Lacasio, and on this episode, Over the Wall, I've got Mario Andretti, one of the most winning race car drivers in the history of racing. Just an extraordinary human being. When I was a kid, he was like the guy, in racing. But when I talk to him here, he talks about team, positive attitude. He talks about all these things that it took to be, one of the winning races in Formula One, Indy, World Sports Championship, NASCAR. He won it all, and he continues to to engage in the world. He's got his family in the business today, and just an extraordinary human being. And so this is a really special episode because for me as a kid growing up, Mario Andretti was like one of the important people in my family's life. It was like he was an Italian American who made it. And so tune in, awesome interview. Check out what Mario has to say about life, work, and family. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. It's Rob Lacasio again, and this is another episode of Over the Wall. Today, I'm with one of my heroes, Mario Andretti, who is one of the most successful racing car drivers in the history of racing. He's won Formula One, Indy, World Sports Championship. He was only one of two people to do that. When I grew up as a kid, I was telling you, there was Sinatra, Lee Iacocca, and then there was Mario Andretti in my household. And it's just a privilege to have you on the show, and thank you for being here, Mario.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
So, as I was telling you, I have a Italian American heritage too, and my grandparents came over from Sicily and came here at nothing, and I thought it'd be interesting to start from that point when you came to the country and your family, and maybe we can start from your history, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Obviously, we were a product of World War II, and we were displaced because of our region in Italy, where I was born. After the Paris Act of 1947, that was annexed to Yugoslavia, hardline communism, and there was a choice to succumb to that communism or leave everything behind, like probably I think it was estimated over 200,000 people in that region, and become refugees in our own country. So we did. We were in a refugee camp in Lucca in Tuscany from 48 to 55, and again in 1952 we had correspondence with an uncle on my mother's side, and things were not really improving much in Italy after the war, like all the other countries of Europe, and an uncle suggested to my dad, why don't you come to America? And dad applied for visas in 1952. 3 years later, the visas came through and it was decision time. And and dad says, well, maybe we go to America for 5 years and come back. That's the story. And so here we came. We came to America, and here's truly the land of opportunity. It turned out to be exactly that, especially for us kids. My twin brother Aldo, my sister Anna Maria, because we were able to really exploit our most ambitious dreams, which starting in Italy. My brother and I are becoming race car drivers. It could have only happened here, quite honestly, especially in those moments of our lives. And always look back, at another event of a negative becoming a positive, because everything that happened to us in America, what we were able to do, could have never happened if we would have stayed there, quite honestly. So,
What did your dad
we
do, by the way? When he came over for work, what did your dad do for work?
well, actually, you got a job. We got a job at the local Bethlehem Steel in Bethlehem, about 15 miles away from where we live, and he retired from that job. Later on, I retired him early, actually, myself, because we were doing quite well, and um, and that's it. So life began very nicely. Credit to my dad. As kids, we never suffered. Kids adapt for one thing, and the issue, the big problem was for my parents to adapt to a new life, if you will, or start a new life. But for us, we adapt, and arriving here, the life, just continued very nicely. We learned the language fairly quickly because Aldo and I had 3 years of English in school in Italy,
Hmm.
so we had the fundamentals anyway, um, and that's it. Talking about our dream, we I always say, believe it or not, even though it looked like the impossible dream of becoming race drivers at that time while we were teenagers, we never had a plan B. And when we arrived here, 2 years after we arrived, we started building a race car to
How old were
race.
you and your brother when you did that? What was the age of you guys?
Uh, we were 17. We arrived here in the United States at 15 years of age in 1955. 2 years later, through school, we started building a race car to race locally with four other buddies, and we didn't know anything about that side of it. We were not mechanics and all that, but we relied on other individuals that shared our dream, if you will, at that young age, and
But
uh,
how, Mario?
and we did a
Not to
pretty
interrupt. How?
we did a pretty good
Right.
job.
But how did you? It's like there's a point where you found your purpose early in life, which is like, that's hard. How did you? What happened to get you there? Like at 17, like we're going in that you and your brother, your twin brother, like go into it. What happened to get you there?
Ambition, ambition and the drive to just do
Like race
something
cars,
no
but
matter
race
what.
cars. You want to do race cars of everything?
Race car, period. I that was the objective from the beginning. As I say, it seemed like absolutely the impossible
Yeah.
dream. When at age 14, the year before we came over, we saw Aldo and I saw firsthand the Italian Grand Prix in
Yep.
Monza, and my idol Alberto Ascari was obviously competing with Ferrari and so forth. And gee, I said, I want to be Alberto Ascari. I want to be. He was he was my absolute idol. But there were other potential obstacles. Like we didn't dare tell my dad that that's what we wanted to pursue. Why? Because the sport was pretty cruel in those times because of the safety factor and so forth. And yeah, so many fatalities. And unfortunately, those are the ones that were always in the news. And so we didn't dare chance of telling my dad because we knew how
Yeah.
protective he was as a parent. And he thought, you kids, okay, every time we talk racing, oh, you kids are crazy
But
type
Al,
of thing,
but
So
Alberto dies at a young age, right? He died.
he died the
Yeah.
year. He died the year before we came to this
Yeah.
country. Actually, no, yeah, in '54, and so again, we had those potential obstacles, even from the family, if you will. But we went ahead and did it anyway. As a matter of fact, we had a winning season, believe it or not. The first season, and that's a matter of record. Aldo and I we even won our very first race that we competed in locally, and it was pretty good stuff here going on. But thinking back, we had the right people around us too, who steered us in the right direction, with the car that we built and all that. And we borrowed money, and my dad, we were, uh, yeah, we had a debt to the bank, to the
Really?
local
You
bank,
put a
believe it
debt
or
on the
not.
bank? You borrowed money from the bank.
Yeah,
The bank,
yeah,
wait,
we
but
did.
the
Yeah.
bank, you decide to go to a bank and say, look, we want to be race car drivers. And they're like, sure, here's the money. That's amazing. Like,
No, we befriended. That's
yeah.
interesting, though. You know, like my I call him my uncle. He was married to my one of my cousins, and he had a gas station at the edge of town, and Aldo and I used to hang around there. We made a lot of friends along the way, and I was talking about racing, and there was a gentleman by the name of Ivo Taviani who owned a block plant nearby, cement block plant. And we befriended him, and he's the one, he and his brother let us use their shop, you know, which was totally equipped, you know, with all the lathes and everything you needed to, and welding machines to do what we needed to do. And he's the one that was co signing, you know, some of these loans that we made to the bank. And, but, you know, fast
Wait,
forward,
did he see something in you guys, you and your brother? Like, why would he do that? What did he see?
well,
You know,
what he saw a spark in our eyes, I think, you know, and he was, you know, Jimmy and Evo, they were both race fans themselves, and then they see us kids, you know, wanting to do this and see the resolve that we had in our just conversation. And they, you know, so they said, "We'll help you, kids, you know, in the best way we can." And they certainly did. Couldn't have done it without them. But again, you know, we talk about loaning. We were up to
that's a
$1,000. You
lot.
know,
That was a lot in the 50s. Yeah.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money. Yeah, in those days, this is in the
Yeah.
'50s, and you know, by July, this the first race was March 21st. By July, we paid the loan off with our winnings. Our very first race, Aldo was driving because we had one car, two drivers, and tossed a, tossed a coin, and he won the heat and the feature, which netted us $150. The very first race, and
And that was stock car racing. You started in stock cars, right?
stock car racing, yes, locally here in Nazareth, half mile
Yeah.
track, and so that's how it all started.
So how come there's you and your brother and you become Mario Andretti and your brother comes Aldo and I mean, there's a path there, you know, and you start out, he's driving, he wins. What happens there? You know, tell me, you know, why did you took the driver's seat somewhere, obviously.
Well, yeah, yeah. We used to
Okay.
alternate. You know, we had one car, two drivers. So the deal was okay. We alternate. He would drive one weekend, and we should drive at three different tracks. Sometimes two, sometimes three different tracks. So we had like three races a week, and starting on a Thursday night, and um, and so he would drive again. You know, one weekend I drive the following weekend, and that's how the first season went. And things again, you know, we had the crashes, we had everything, you know, but a lot of wins, which again, you know, that's launched my career in the best possible way. Aldo was not as fortunate. The very last race of the season, which was an invitational, he crashed very badly, and his injury took him out totally for the following year. He was in a coma
Wow.
for almost a month. Yeah, yeah, and that actually determined his career ultimately. But you know, again, and that's when my dad found out we were racing.
Wait, your
Believe it or
dad didn't
not,
know you didn't tell your parents you were racing during this time?
we ran the whole season. We ran. It was in the papers, you know, that locally that we were winning, and um, and actually, my dad was being congratulated by a boss. He had no idea what the other guy was saying because of the language barrier, you know. So that was our defense, you know, the language barrier. We got away with it, but anyway, uh, that's the way it started. That's the way it started, and for me. I was the lucky one, you know. I was the one that dodged the bullets, and my career started exactly in 1959. And my very last race professionally was in the year 2000 at 24 Hours of Le Mans. So again, you know, I was blessed, as you can imagine,
So
throughout.
when we this show is all about people following their dreams and those early days, now that you look back, you can look back on your life. Um, like I don't know if there's people if they believe in like a god or something higher than them, something helping them forward, or is it all internal, or there's a calling that you got? Because I talk about people entering these different lives, these different professions. It's hard. Like you took a big risk. It's like I want to be a race car driver. I had Scott Kelly, the astronaut. He had a twin brother too, by the way, and they both became astronauts. They both went to space, and he was like a failure when he was young, but he kept with it. He kept with it. But I asked him the same question: did you feel like you were called to it? Did you feel like you had this purpose now looking back, or is it just an accident and you fell into it? I mean, how do you sort of connect the dots, in those first couple of years?
That's really a good question, and people ask me that question often. Why? Why did you take that direction? I don't know why. There was, as you said, there must have been a calling somewhere, something that drove us to this, to this idea to pursue something like this. There was no one in the family, basically, that was involved in the sport or anything like that. It captured our imagination very early on. Why? Because I think the sport of motor racing was so prominent in the 50s, especially when, Formula One was officially born. And then, you had Ferrari, Maserati,
Mayo,
Alfa
yeah.
Romeo, these major brands winning on a world stage, and you can imagine the furor, all that that was going on, with the press and so forth in Italy. And as kids, I became enamored with that, and that's how it started. But here again, yeah, you look back, you look to some divine providence somewhere, yeah, because sometimes when you don't understand certain things, you just figure, well, it's coming from somewhere. And I had I had that faith, and this is something that I was calling on for help too, as far as uh, try to keep me safe. There was an interesting, Rob. There was a chaplain at the camp, a refugee camp that we had, was the most wonderful man in the world, and I also had a uncle priest in the family, and I figured, man, I have two of the best that can help us out. And there was always, every time we spoke, even after I was here and racing, they knew obviously I was racing. They said, "I have you, I have you in in a mass every
Wow.
day, and to protect." So, all these things, work in your, the ability to perform and overcome potential, setbacks and all that sort of thing, or things that happen, help me through this type of thing. You lose a friend, an ex-friend, like I have many times. I said, give me strength to continue. I want to continue. I don't want this, and things like that. You always, I always had that in me, obviously, but I felt that there was something bigger than me that was somehow
Yeah.
helping, if you will. And I still believe
Do
that,
do you
quite
do you
honest.
remember talking about that helping hand there? You talked about setbacks and people in your life who died and who were racing and stuff. And was there ever a time that you remember? You probably there's many, but specifically where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Where you have to look inside and say like, I know I should do this, but I don't know if this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Was there ever a period in early on where you felt that, or even out throughout your career? You know.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because there were critical moments like that, but I never ever did I consider quitting. uh, I I always try so hard, to put the negative aside. I said I cannot allow myself to dwell on that, because I don't know. There's no way that I felt at that time that I could live my life serenely and giving up what this means so much to me. You have no idea. I'll match my passion and love for the sport with anyone on this planet ever, and that's a fact. And that's what drove me. That's what drove me. I could not allow anything to stand in the way, and it was that strong. My will to do what I did and continue to do so. As you could see, I was so fortunate, so blessed that I only, I hope I don't jinx myself, but I only missed two races in my entire career because of injury. And I've gone through periods where we're losing six guys a year during the seasons, like in the '60s especially. And so why was I spared? Sometimes you feel guilty even. And look at my brother. My brother had to. What his career was cut 10 years later after his accident. He continued. There was another big accident in Des Moines, Iowa, where he wound up in the grandstands, and that defined his career. He had, these injuries that he could not continue. So, between my two sons, you have
Yeah,
Michael and
Michael's
Jeff.
very
Michael,
Michael Andretti.
Michael,
Yeah, Michael's a world class driver
yeah,
too. And Jeff,
like
yeah,
me.
Mike, yeah, it's
Michael was
amazing.
everything happening, and Jeff was like a cloud was over and black cloud over him everywhere he went. He had same thing, injuries that took him out of the sport. So,
Were you
uh,
ever scared of
believe
them
me,
joining the sport? They're your sons. You know the danger. You're thinking you had luck and not getting injured, but how much luck can a family have? Did you ever feel like when they
uh,
joined, were you like great, or you just had that feeling like, maybe your dad had that feeling about you when you started to really when he was watching you. I don't know.
well, quite honestly, like I said, there's no way that I was ever say scared, because that would have been something that it just would have taken me out of it for sure. Dwelling on that negative. Uh, Everything that could have been a stumbling block was overcome by the desire, the burning desire to go on and continue. It again, there was there was nothing that stood in the way. I was fortunate that I had a wonderful wife, wonderful lady that we married young, had a family early on, and she was not a race fan by
She
any
wasn't a race
means
fan.
in the sense, but no, she was just pretty much just got stuck into it. But she was so solid, and even tempered and everything, that I had all of that around me, and never ever made me feel guilty of just being selfish to just pursue this and maybe giving up some family life, picnics and all that, the normal things. So all of these things helped, and then but once you get going and things are going well, then all around the extended family, is all rooting for you and all that. So, and all of that plays. But deep down, though, it was me that was in control of my own destiny, and I did not allow anything to just deter or stand in the way, just because, again, uh, I said, that's all I want in life. That's what I want in life, and that's it. And that's real. That's for real. So that's what drove me, and that's what kept me serene. And again, I take for granted nothing for granted, uh, as to how fortunate I've been by being able to dodge so many bullets along the way. For sure, for sure.
So,
But that's the way it went.
so you're talking. You said a couple times. I never dwelled on the negative, and it's interesting thing as an entrepreneur or you're living your dream. It seems like such an important phrase. I never dwelled on the negative, although your mind sometimes plays tricks, right? And I guess how did you get through that? What is there anything you did, or like I said, it's just a lesson for people on the other side who are like, I want to live my dream, and I love to be Mario Andretti of my life, and what did you have to do there to like not look at that and not focus on hitting the wall, shall we say, right? I mean, what'd you have to do?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, here's the thing, Rob. There's so many things that it's never a bed of roses. As you know that in anything that's worthwhile, anything you want worthwhile to pursue in life, and there's so many times and many reasons, to just figure, oh man, this and that and the other. And if you waste your time and like dwell on a mistake that you made or something. You made you lost something for your own team or whatever. And I know that we're all human. You make mistakes, and I figure if I'm going to just sob and dwell on that, I says, then I'm losing myself. You somehow you try to just come out of it. You know what? Snap out of it. Let's look at tomorrow, not yesterday, and it has to be that way. Otherwise, you're just wasting the energy the wrong way. Quite honestly, you make a mistake, you figure, well, you know what? It's not going to help me just to sob and over and everything else. Let's just figure out how we don't do that again. Basically, try to learn from it, and that's all you can do. It's a personal thing, just to you feel happy. You want to feel happy about
Yeah.
things, you
And
know, and that's how you're serene, and you know that's the formula that I use for myself. That's what kept me going.
I guess what you're saying, I often says too, is like a lot of times when you lose or you fail, I never look at it as a failure. I look at it like this is a moment of learning. It's a very specific thing because learning is different than failure. But people just think I failed. There's nothing to learn here. I'm a loser or whatever they put it. Your mind starts playing games. But I guess you see it the same way. It's just a process of learning. You learn through failure. You learn from losing sometimes. You don't always learn from winning. I find sometimes, right? It's a process.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah, no questions. I say it's maybe again you're looking back at every negative has a positive along the way. So the negative is you fail on something, but have you learned something? Have you learned not to fail again in that area? So that becomes a positive. You got to look at that way,
Yeah.
and not to get lost on a part that will take you back. So it has worked for me, quite honestly, and it had to because I was just forcing myself into just smiling all the
I know.
time,
I think of you. You always have
even
right.
if it hurt right here, put on put on the happy face.
But I guess for you, what's interesting about your sport is that if you go into that car, I guess you have to really be disciplined. If you go into that car with a negative mindset or a down mindset, it could mean the end of your life, which is very different than normal people's work. I guess you have a concept of that when you're racing at those speeds, right? I've got to be the best I can be, or I can hit the wall. I can die doing my profession.
Well, that too, but also I'll tell you what drove me also is the fact that our sport is a very, very complicated sport because of so many moving parts, the technical side, and it's a true, true team sport because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just a ball and a bat or a set of golf clubs or something. This a machine is something very complicated and that requires a lot of skillful work to prepare for you because if that's done wrong, there's no way that you can perform yourself. So, and it's an incredibly tasking job to be able to do that from the standpoint of engineers and mechanics, and you feel that responsibility also to reward them, not just yourself. That was so big for me. Like you go out, like qualifying. I just love qualifying because that's when you really hang it all out. And you come in, you set a record to see the smile and the euphoria in your own team. You know what I mean? All of that really keeps you alive, keeps you really at the top of your game because of the feeling that you have of satisfaction, if you will. And a lot of that was very much part of it. I really, really love. I didn't have to force myself to express myself, to my own team. I have friends for life. I mean, friends that have aged with me and we're still in contact with each other. thinking and remembering the great moments that we've had together and all that. So it's bigger than
You, it's
just
just bigger
me,
than
if
you.
you will.
And you, right,
Much bigger.
right.
Yeah. And so all of these factors come to play. The people around you that are happy, and you're making them happy because you're showing that their work helped you. Their work helped you achieve what we had all achieved together.
Now,
If you know what I mean.
absolutely.
All this is huge, by
Yeah,
the way.
and I heard a quote from Enzo Ferrari that he used to say that. Now I don't know if you're going to believe this. All like he said, like 80% of the winning is the car, and this is what he believed. At least I heard him say it was, and 20% of the drivers. And you're saying the interdependence between the machine and man, together is so intertwined in this sport. What's your sense on, and you also you design parts of, like when you were in the Lotus team, you would design parts of the car, right? You were part of the engineering team on that. But how do you see who's more, the car or the person?
Well, that's a debatable
Okay.
question. Now you're talking to
I
the
was gonna say
driver.
that's what I remember. That's what I'm talking about. The owner of the cars in Ferrari thinks it was the car. So
No, all I can say that situations change dramatically, in any event, and sometimes the driver contributes a higher percentage than the car, and vice versa. There are different tracks where, say, a very high speed oval, you have to have the speed, the car to give you the speed. You cannot make up with your skill how fast you're going to go down the
right.
straightaway. So the car will contribute more than the driver in that respect, and vice versa. If you get on a very tight circuit like a road course, like a Monte
Yeah.
Carlo, and the technicality of getting around a course like that, I guarantee you the driver contributes more than the car there. And but uh, all in all, at the end of the day, you need
Yeah.
both.
Right.
The driver cannot make up for what's lacking in the car either. No matter how good you think you are. So let's put value on
Okay.
both. But as far as saying saying 80% car, well, that's strictly
I
Mr.
was gonna say.
Ferrari, who you know is the engine, the engine and chassis builder.
I was gonna say.
I'll grant him that, but there's very few things that I disagree would disagree with him on. But this one I definitely
You now,
disagree
I
on.
would assume, as an coming from Italy, Ferrari is like, and you drove for the team for a short period of time, I think. But did you meet Mr. Ferrari? Did you meet him at a point?
Oh, no, I had a great relationship with him, and I won a lot of races for Ferrari. Basically, I won my very first Formula One race with Ferrari. I contributed to winning the World Manufacturers Championship in '72. In the sports cars, and yeah, my very last Formula One race in my career was with Ferrari, substituting for tragedy in the team. The loss of Didier
Yeah.
Pironi in '82, and after being a year away from Formula One, I put the car on pole, and except for some engine problem at the end, I would have won the race. But I finished third. I was still on podium, and so I had great satisfaction with Ferrari
What was he
and
like, by the way? What
part.
was he like to work for?
He
What was he
was
like to work for? I'm curious, as a driver.
as long as as long as you gave, he knows that you gave 100%. Even if you just brought back the steering wheel, he he was on your
Okay.
side. As long as you gave 100%, and he could see that no matter what happened, winning, of course. But if you failed, if you had a crash or whatever, and I found that out, you know, he would not fault you as long as you were trying hard. He was a true racer, through and through. Appreciating what a driver has to do and what a driver has to give, how much you have to risk to be able to achieve that. And yeah, he was a great man, as you can imagine, an icon in the sport historically, and I that was uh, such a to me a precious part of having had him in my life, for a period of time, and I always dealt with him directly.
Yeah, he was an amazing figure. Obviously, Ferrari, it's iconic as a race team, as a car. And obviously, you were in a period of time in racing where people, like, there were a lot of deaths of great drivers during that time. And then eventually it got better. We lost Senna, and there's a bunch of people who, I guess, I don't know if that marked the end when they tried to change the cars, but maybe you could talk about that period of why was there so many fatalities in the sport at that time? It doesn't seem as much now. There's a lot more that's in the car. But I'm curious, when you were racing, what was happening during that time? It seemed pretty extreme.
Well, I can tell you that. I mean, it's very clear. The sport has evolved. Obviously, this sport, like many other sports, had its infancies early, developed, became a huge, much more commercial, which always blew it up to a different level. And but again, uh, the safety aspect was a work in progress for a long time. And, back in the 60s, as you said, when you had so many of these fatalities that I don't think the sport would have even survived in modern times when it became more
Yeah.
commercial, with so many negatives. So, as drivers, we actually organized to enforce, I said that our reasoning was simple. I said, if we're so smart that every year we can make the car go faster and so on and so forth, why can't we use a lot of that knowledge to make the car safer, but also to make the facilities safer, like a safer barrier, on and on. And it took a long time, but it was a work in progress. It's still a work in progress, by the way. And you don't feel like, we have the ultimate, and no matter what, the sport will always be uh, always be dangerous because there's a violent aspect to it, So, but you still can do whatever is humanly possible to learn, every year to make something safer, to absorb impact, this and that. And we're at the point now that the sport is enjoying the best moments, by the way, when it comes to that, because we learned a lot. And as I say, the drivers, in the periods of, I'd say, 60s, 70s, especially, the drivers had the best chance of any driver to retire on their own terms, or maybe 30%, 25,
Wow.
30%. Now it's 99.5
Yeah, it's amazing. That's a massive change.
profit.
Yeah.
So, it's again, safety at first was ignored. It was all about performance. And I look back at some of the cars that I sat in, when I was, in my early 20s and so forth, and even in my 30s. I said, "Oh my God, just we dodged a lot of bullets there. What if this? What if that?" And
Were
but
you ever in a crash?
and
What was your worst
people,
crash that you ever had that you walked out?
well, I was
Yeah.
crashes. Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple that, but for maybe an inch, I would not be here talking to you. It was up in Canada, just something that was, well, anyways, I'll explain. The car was parked on the side, and just the last second, I noticed it, and as I steered, it's maybe 2 inches, and that would have been the end of everything. So I've had a couple of those. One in England, the same way that all of a sudden it was talk about divine providence. I was going probably 140 miles an hour against an abutment sideways. All of a sudden, the rear wheel that had busted went under the car, and I did two 360s, and it took me away from that. I mean, okay, that would have been the end of it. So there were a few like that I know that fortunate I
What's it
was.
like though? Like
And then
what?
I'll give you
Yeah,
another
go ahead.
one. In 2003, 63 years of age, I was testing at Indianapolis, actually, for my son, for Michael, because one of his drivers was injured in Japan, and I was going to have to qualify for him. And I was doing a test, the last run of the day. I'm following, another car, and he blew an engine big time, and he crashed, and I ran over some debris, and I cut a pulp at 222 miles an hour. My car up in the air. You can find that on. You can go on YouTube and say Mario's flip at Indianapolis, and you can see it. So again, I've had my moments. Trust me. I mean, in 800, I was 896 races, I think, in my life, professional races. I think you're going to have your moments. But I was again, I was lucky
Yeah,
all the way
blessed.
along.
We had the
So
priest in the family.
blessed,
You had the
blessed,
priest in the family
blessed.
probably helping you out, it sounds like.
Yeah, it didn't
It
hurt me
didn't
at
hurt you.
all.
So is there one track that you love, that you were like in love to drive? You thought this is my was it Monza, because that's where your hero was? Was it where was it? Was it Le Mans? Was it Indy? Where Sebring,
Well,
what is it?
I I never really look at things that way because I loved every track going in. All I can say is some victories are more meaningful than others. You know, not to I'm not answering your question directly, but I'll give you an example. For me, like when I won the Formula One race in Monza, in '77. Um, can you imagine, winning where my dream
Yeah, I was gonna
began?
say.
The, but the following year in Monza, I clinched the world championship, which was my ultimate dream. Um, so it's wherever some victories have are more meaningful than others. The tracks themselves, I always say, everywhere I want to race. That's that's where I like to say the same thing with cars. People say, okay, how about race cars? Which is
Yeah.
you have one race car that you like better? No, I like every race car that I give me a victory somewhere. So
But you're
that's the
most
way I'm looking.
associated with the Black Lotus race car. That's what I feel like. No, or is that not the case? That's what I
Well,
feel like when I grew up. You were in that first of all was like the coolest car because it's a black car with the gold on it. I'm like, this is the coolest car, and it's got the coolest driver. I just feel like that's your car. Maybe wrong from your perspective, but that's what I grew up with.
Well, again, that car brought me a world
Yeah,
championship. With Lotus, and it was just a very precious and meaningful time in my life and my career, no question about it. Everything happened that I was just dreaming my entire life, as long as I was able to reason about. But I've had a incredibly satisfying career here in the States
yeah,
also, but winning championships in IndyCar and winning races in all the different disciplines on the dirt tracks. I won races in midgets
yeah.
and sprint cars, dirt tracks, super speedway, and so on and so forth. So to be able to do that and in that dimension, I couldn't have asked for anything more, quite honestly. And I'll match that part of my career with anyone because I don't think you'll ever see anyone that has won a Formula One race that won races on the
Yeah, the
dirt.
midget, you
So
did midget car to Formula One to everything in between. So anything that has four wheels.
but there were actually some in the '70s. There were some weekends. When I'd be on in the Formula One car and on the dirt track, same time,
God.
same weekend. So and I know that no one else had that opportunity.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you've never retired and you never will retire, but I want to talk about a little bit. Obviously, family. You started all this with your brother, and um, and then there's your sons and now grandsons, and it's like you've got a family business, right? And it's just like you seem to cherish bringing your family into something that has been very special to you. And I just want to talk about that, what the meaning of that has been, and what are some of the things you're doing with your family and your grandkids and your sons and obviously I think your brother just passed away during COVID from what I remember, from what I read. So that must be a major loss in the family business. But just talk about that post racing, what you've been creating as a business person.
Well, basically, as a business, I still follow, the sport vigorously because, as you say, I have family as part of it. On my brother's side and also on our side with Michael having, a team, uh, teams. I mean, teams all over
Yeah,
the world, basically in Europe and Australia and here, and trying to get into Formula One now. So there's there's a lot of that's going on, and as far as the family, we're a very close family, and and root each other, whatever endeavor. I have some nieces and nephews and nieces that are becoming you know they're they're doctors and so on and so forth. I mean, you know
yeah,
what I mean. Pursue other uh, you know other
professions. Yep. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Other professions, I should say, and but we root for each other, and that's it. I always say, just follow your dreams. You don't have to be a race driver for me to just root, be in your corner. Follow your dreams, and if you have that going for you, if you have focus on something, driven for towards something, go for it. And that's the most beautiful thing in life, in my opinion. And as a family, again, I think that's what we look at. That's what we appreciate. We all, you know, we call it the crazy Andretti's. That's how we do it. And on yeah, we text each other, on there, and everybody knows what they're doing after the little kids, playing football and out there and going for it. I just scored a touchdown. Show us the video, and we got all these things. So we encourage each other in every aspect, and we're so proud of that side of it. In business. We've been able to cultivate,
yeah,
good businesses on our side. And what's interesting, for instance, the management of our businesses, like probably the biggest one that we have is a petroleum company, where our manager is MJ Costello, and I speak with him every day, basically, and he, when he reports, especially, when he's very jovial on something that's, something really good to report, he refers back to, we just won another race. He uses that model, of racing, like, teamwork, and all of that, and looking at the satisfaction of overcoming some setbacks potentially, and other things, and so always trying to move forward, if you will. I like that energy. I think it's contagious, and also uh, reward your team. Keep them all included. We're all part of the team. It's amazing when I go and visit these locations. They all really feel like they're part of it. There's a pride aspect. We promote from within. Always do that. Give people the opportunity to better themselves and look for something better for their lives and all that. I think all of these things they're easy, and they make a lot of
mm.
sense, and it's rewarding all the way around. Quite honestly, it really is.
Oh, Mario, if your parent, let's say your parents are up in heaven there, and they're looking down on you and what you created, what do you think they're saying to each other right now? You're coming from Italy during the war, coming to America, your dad's working in steel. I mean, what do you think they're saying up there? Do you ever think of that?
Well, I like to think that there's pride there. My my dad, my mom, my dad, especially in that respect, he like, to know we're coming to America, and just for instance, now there's a big display, at the Smithsonian Institute of the IndyCar, the winner, in the section where it says the Nation of Speed, and here we have, it actually it just opened up just couple of weeks ago, and to be displayed there.
Shh.
To see my dad, his chest would be 2 feet out, in front of, all of these things I seen played, and my dad, when we won the world championship, and all that, oh my God, here's this crazy kid that, he made it. He obviously, was vehemently against it at the beginning, but he became the biggest fan, but then he was wondering, why aren't you winning every race, type of thing.
He's all over you. He's like, come on, you gotta win everything.
Yeah, come on, Mario. What's what's
That's
wrong
such
with
a
you?
parent. What's wrong with you? You're not winning every race.
Yeah, right.
Well, I just want to thank you for being on the show. And as I mentioned, it's obvious why in my family you meant a lot. You meant a lot to a lot of families. Like when you're kids, your parents want to put you and show you people that are doing things in the world that they think they admire themselves. And I think we used to watch the races on TV, and it was like I said, if I ever drove the car fast with my parents, like, well, you act like Mario Andretti. And it was like, you were you were the description of
That's where you were
that's you're
naughty.
naughty.
That's
That's
where
what
you
it
were
was.
naughty.
Wait, Mario Andretti, slow down. So I just like you had such a presence, and I understand why now because you have such this energy that you've given to the world, and I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for your time here because to hear you're thinking about team and your idea of like never, don't get down. It's just important because my grandfather wrote me a letter. He was an immigrant. He wrote me a letter when I got out of college, and he just said, he said, following your dreams, you'll find is hard, and you're going to find a lot of people are going to be against you, but you gotta always just keep positive and keep going forward. He wrote this simple letter to me. I have it. I keep it with me at all times because I'm like, it's just the way the world is. It's not so easy when you have a dream to just go achieve it unless you have an idea like you did and a sense of positive energy. And I think you bring that to the world. It's fantastic.
That's the way it was for me. That's the way it still is.
Thank you, Mario, for everything. Thank you for all your gifts and thanks for being on the show.